Welcome back to Podcast Recovery, everyone. We're your hosts, David O.
And Eric B.
Wow, that inflection was nice. It was very...
I can see the waveform actually on the monitor right now. It looks lovely.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Today we're joined by a special guest, Jeff. How are you doing today, man?
Doing great. Hope you guys are.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Doing well.
good, yeah.
So where are you from, Jeff?
I am originally from the mountains of North Carolina.
Nice. Beautiful.
Currently living in the Raleigh area.
Awesome.
Oh,
Nice.
cool, man.
Yeah. Is it the...
It's like Asheville?
Is it the Blue Ridge in North Carolina?
It is.
It is.
Absolutely. That's right.
Yeah, and then you cross over, and then it's the Smokies in Tennessee.
Correct. Yep.
Nice. Yeah.
Actually, I went to graduate school in Tennessee, UT Chattanooga.
Awesome. All right. So when were you first introduced to recovery?
So, actually, I am 48 years old, have progressively used since I was about 12. At that time, I was suffering some severe childhood sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And during that, was introduced to alcohol. And started using as a way to numb the pain and just kind of leave the abuse and forget about it.
Yeah.
Was also very active in sports during that time as a way to get out of the house and occupy my mind and give me something to focus on. That probably saved me through the teenage years because I was actually really good at baseball and was able to go to college and play baseball. But the partying, drinking didn't stop there. I actually lost my scholarship because I wasn't focused on baseball. I was more focused on the college lifestyle of partying and drinking.
Yep.
Was able to finish and met a girl and was able actually to marry her when I was about 25. Still with her today.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how she stayed all these years.
Yeah.
But she must be a saint or something. But she's very supportive. Been through a lot with me. But after college, the drinking and it started really experimenting with more harder substances after that. Unbeknownst to her at the time, she just saw the drinking party guy. Didn't know, the experimentation I was doing with other substances, mainly cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
And was very functioning through all that. Was able to go to graduate school, as I mentioned, at UT Chattanooga. Landed several good jobs. Have a good job now. The jobs they've suffered because I've missed promotion opportunities. But I've never lost a job, never lost a house, never lost family because of the substance abuse. So, was able to function, but there's a lot of missed days, a lot of hangovers, and it progressively got worse into my late 30s, into my early 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, a lot of the childhood stuff really reared its ugly head again. And I've found in some of my therapy, some of my group support groups that I attend, that's fairly common with adults who have suffered childhood trauma. Is for some reason, I guess, once you hit around that 40-year mark, your brain starts trying to deal with all the nonsense. And over the last, basically since late 30s, 40s, for the last 10 years, the drinking, I got away from the hard drugs, but the drinking just got worse and worse. There was through my early 40s to about 45, 46. I couldn't go more than 4 or 5 days without binging for 4 or 5 days. I would binge hard on hard liquor for 4 or 5 days. I'd go through withdrawals for 4 or 5 days, and I'd be back on it. And I was hiding it, drinking it, hiding it, drinking at work, in the bathrooms. I've been arrested 3 times for DWI over the years. I was kicked off on an airplane, and it ended up in the hospital in Baltimore at one point for a head injury a couple years ago. And funny story behind that, I was traveling, and I travel a lot with work, and that's really, and I may be jumping all over the board here, guys. I'm sorry, but
no, you're good. Yeah, no problem.
All right, and so I travel a lot with work, and that's a big trigger for me because most of my abuse that occurred was in hotel rooms. So basically, when I'm traveling by myself for work, I work during the day, and then I go lock myself into a room that basically just screams out the abuse that I suffered. And so the way I dealt with that, obviously, was to numb it and just drink until I passed out, get up in the morning, stumble out the door, and try to put on a happy face for work. So I was flying home that day and was severely hungover, been drinking all week while working. Had promised my son that I'd be home that night. It was a Friday night, that I'd be home by 10 or so we could watch a movie. And I ended up in the hospital that afternoon. And the drunk mind obviously took over, ripped all my IVs out, snuck out of the hospital, grabbed an Uber, and the Uber driver drove me 6 hours to my house. Cost me almost $2,000. But the drunk mind, when I got home, I was proud of myself because I made it home by 10 o'clock and watched the movie with my son. So stuff like that. I've wrecked company cars, had to pay thousands of dollars out of my pocket so no one would find out and have them repaired. So just a typical alcoholic story. So over the last couple years, as like I said, as it progressed into my mid 40s, I tried to get all kinds of help, therapy. I increased therapy. I started going to AA. I'd always been not willing to try medication. So I started medication a few years ago, trying that. I've tried Celebrate recovery groups. I've tried Smart recovery groups. All kinds of things, yoga, mindfulness. I ran the gamut.
Yeah, sounds like.
And then right as Corona hit back in March, which actually has been the biggest blessing for me because all my travel was restricted when that hit, so that took away that trigger. But since I couldn't hit the road back in March and I was forced to stay home, I said, if I'm ever going to do this, this is the time to do it. So I actually went into rehab. And since I wasn't required to be on the road, I could actually take some time off and went into rehab. Got out of there, felt good about it, worked the programs that they gave me, continued with online groups through the summer. Had about, going into actually a couple weekends ago, a good solid 6 months of nothing in my system but water and my medication. And then actually a couple weeks ago was my wife's birthday, and I threw a party for her, and that kind of triggered me. I it was nowhere near a binge like I've had, but I did drink that night. I was upset with myself, but it didn't lead. I didn't drink the next day, and it was that one night. But it's I now know how people who have a solid length of time in recovery feel when they have that one blip, and how because I never really understood it when I was in the depths of using. That's all I could think about. But the disappointment in myself and my family and friends, they weren't disappointed in me. I guess they expected it, but I always expected that, once I had a good 6 months in, it was easy breezy, lemon squeezy at that point. But since then I've got another 2 weeks. I don't count days. I know we talked a little bit about that when I got on the call, but I've tried that in the past, and to be honest with you, once I got to 10 days, 20, 30 days, it was kind of a trigger for me. So when people ask me how long you got, I say, well, I'm sober today. I was sober yesterday. I'm hoping to be sober tomorrow. So that's kind of my story. I mean, there's plenty of other stories that I could talk about. Car accidents, running with the law. But
yeah, we all have those.
Yeah, we all have them. I mean, everybody's heard those stories. I'm beyond blessed, and I've gotten closer in my spirituality with my God, and the fact that I've always questioned for many, many years why he would allow such abuse for a young, innocent kid, and then for that kid to grow up with the problems that I've had. But recently, in my recovery and studying the Bible and talking to different groups and people, it made me realize, I suffered all that, but maybe there was a reason. Maybe that's why he gave me such a beautiful, wonderful, supportive wife to help me to get to this point. And hopefully at this point, once I am comfortable that I've figured some of this stuff out, that I can go back out and do like you guys are and promote some of this stuff and help other people.
Yeah. All right.
So
that's basically it.
That's awesome, Jeff.
Yeah.
So quick question for you real quick is, I heard you mention, and this is just from something I heard you mention, so let me know if I'm off base here, but I heard you mention the Bible, and I was curious, do you celebrate recovery at all?
Yes, I have. I've gotten I've went to several of those. Obviously, in the time that over the past 6 months, a lot of that stuff is having to be online. I mean, our church isn't even meeting as a church. But yes.
Yeah, you were using
you there?
some. Yeah, you were using some key language that I've heard people from Celebrate use, because each recovery fellowship kind of has their own different phrases, and use the word slip, use the word Bible specifically. So I was just curious, and how I want to talk about the concept of a slip, right? Because I feel like a slip is a very important word that Celebrate uses, and some other fellowships
it needs to be
use.
acknowledged.
And I think it's good because you kind of just mentioned it right there, right? Like, you had a slip, and you recognize it as a slip, but now you're going to use that to propel your recovery. Where in NA or AA, if you slip, that's an excuse to go and go to town, man.
Yeah.
It's time to, if you're going to relapse hard. So my question is kind of has that helped with, has Celebrate Recovery in that language kind of helped you reconcile? And I know it's still fresh, but kind of reconcile what that slip is and kind of put it in the right perspective.
So I guess the best way I could explain the differences in the two is, while they both give credit to a higher power, Celebrate Recovery, I think, and one of the aspects I love about it is, and I don't want to say AA doesn't do this, but Celebrate Recovery gives more credibility and more personal accountability and personal strength to yourself. So if you do have that slip, you have the power in you, not necessarily just through your higher power, even though you need to recognize that faith and that conviction and that trust in your higher power. You have the strength in yourself to get up the next day and not beat yourself up over it. Not having to go to 20 meetings a day and to make sure you don't use again. Pick yourself up, get back into the Bible, get back into your journaling, get back into your relationship with God, talk about what just happened, forgive yourself, dust yourself off, and keep moving.
All right. And yeah, I have a question. I'm not totally sure how Celebrate Recovery works, but obviously, like with the 12-step fellowships, sponsorship is a really big part of the recovery process. So have you utilized a sponsor at all? And obviously, I think you've reached out and talked to other recovering addicts 100%. So how important is if you haven't used a sponsor, how important is relating to other fellow recovering addicts? And if you do have a sponsor, how important is that relationship?
Yeah, I do have a sponsor.
Okay.
I am not sponsoring anyone, but I do have a sponsor. And we talk several times a day. It's vital for me.
Yeah.
I've never, up until this year, I had not had a sponsor. I put a lot of that responsibility, I realize now, unfairly on my wife.
Ooh.
and some friends who tried to help but didn't understand because they hadn't lived it like a sponsor has.
Yeah.
So my sponsor is he's very similar to me, which I like. He doesn't promote just one pathway to recovery. He's done all the different groups just like I'm doing and have done.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing I like is when I have a question, if I'm comparing, because Celebrate Recovery, they have a similar process as the 12 steps, but it's a little bit different. But so when you want to bounce those two things off of each other, and if I have questions, he's great to talk to. He's I wouldn't say much, he's about 15, 20 years older than me. He's deep into his recovery. He's one of the old timers in the groups, and I'm sure you know what I mean when I say old timer.
Oh, yeah.
He's been perfect for me, and God bless him. He's there anytime I need him. He really takes it serious, and
awesome.
I didn't know him from Adam until I got into my group work earlier this year. He actually helped me and went with me to rehab. He had been to the same one, and
cool.
again, if it wasn't for him, I don't know if I would have done that. He went with me. He was there when I got out. Went to my first meeting with me. Just been a godsend, and I wished I had been open to a sponsor earlier, and I regret thinking that I could hide it with just a few friends and my wife. And I look back on it, and it can be heartbreaking when I think back about all the tears that my wife shed. I know she was trying to help, but I know she was scared and frustrated, and was at her wit's end, and it wasn't fair to her for me to put that responsibility on her. And I try to make up for that every day.
All right. What you got, Eric?
So you said something interesting before when you were kind of talking about waking up in the morning and, after that slip and not, necessarily turning to God first, but turning to yourself to like kind of make sure that you, you put your best foot forward to make sure you go the right way. And that's kind of interesting. So are you also in AA as well, or just Celebrate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yes, no, I do AA as well, but I got to be honest with you, I had been resistant to AA because, like I said, my spirituality is fairly new as well. Mm-hmm. So I was always uncomfortable when I would go to AA. Let's say 5 years ago, if I went to an AA meeting, I was uncomfortable with the religious aspect of it. I mean, I went to church not every Sunday, but almost every Sunday for the last 25 years with my wife. Mm-hmm. But I went begrudgingly. I went hungover. Hell, I went.
Oh God, that's the worst place to be hungover.
Yeah. So, going into AA meeting and talking about higher powers, and I used that as an excuse not to go, and I think a lot of people do that, and it really is what you make it, and it doesn't have to be the religious epiphany that a lot of people think that's what it's all about.
Oh yeah, so like kind of so explain that to me though, right? So when I think of someone who's going to, and this is just a stereotype, right? Like if I'm thinking of someone who's going to Celebrate or AA, I'm thinking like you're going to turn directly to God, right? But you're talking about self-reliance, which, that's more of a science-based approach or, an Eastern approach. Now,
right.
How does your spirituality interact and evolve with your recovery? Because, you're saying that 5 years ago you weren't feeling it, but even now you're mixing like multiple ways of doing things in like in an interesting way too. Like I'm here for it.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool because there's parts of Celebrate that I think are great.
Yeah,
from people that I talk to, but it's interesting that like after a slip you would go to like more of a science-based approach on self. So where's your spirituality like today?
I'm sorry, where was my spirituality to what?
How would you describe your spirituality today?
So, I hear people, they talk about spirituality. They say I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. And I understand what they're saying. But for me, I always looked at religion as people just looking for hope and meaning to their life. Because if you think about some of the stories and books in the Bible, like I just can't wrap my head around some of them. I can't think of an example right now, but there's ways to live if you dig deep in the Bible. There's things in the Bible that you can apply and understand that this is basically a historical book that talks about stories that have been passed down, written down, passed down for thousands of years. So, obviously things change. You can't tell two of your neighbors the same story. So, things change, but if you use it as a guidebook, I guess is the way I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I have a man room. The Bible is now beside my recliner in the man room. I read it in the morning. I don't read it from front page to back page. I open it up and I'll read, just to read. I've got a journal there beside it. I journal at night before I go to bed. But for me, I guess the thing with self-reliance is that dates back probably to my childhood abuse. Is I look at myself as the only one at that time that could help me and save me because of what I was going through. And I think that continues on to this day. So when I get something negative happens in my life, like that slip that we talked about, the first person I'm going to look to is not going to be God, because he wasn't the one that made the decision to pick up that bottle that night. I'm not going to, I'm not going to go to him the next morning and say, why did you let that happen? I'll ask him for help, and I'll talk to him about it, because I've learned, over the last few years of my journey, that I never knew how to talk to God. I never knew how to pray to God. Now I just sit there and I do it like he's in the room with me. But I know in my journey that he's there to support me, but he's not there to do it for me.
Ooh,
I've got to do it for myself. So
awesome. All right. What question am I going to ask? How, like, you
and I'm probably rambling a lot, so I'm sorry about that.
No, man, you're doing great. You talked about, like, in your story how you sort of had like you had a lot of stuff happen, crash cars, all that stuff, but never really got into, like, real serious trouble. So, did the lack of consequences, like, sort of aid in you, like, the continuing of your addiction, and, like, did that lack of consequences sort of keep you going for a while, when maybe if some, like, harsher punishment might have snapped you out a little bit sooner?
Man, you just hit the fucking nail on the head, brother. Yeah, I mean, I never once, and there's a couple of things with that. I talked about my wife. I never once was fearful that she wouldn't be there in the morning when I woke up, or she wouldn't be there at home when I showed up 5 days and she didn't know where I was.
Yeah.
I never once feared that. I knew that I could count on her, and I took advantage of that, just like you're talking about. So there was no consequences at home. At work, up until earlier this year, and it just coincides with all this perfect timing, I had the same boss for nearly 20 years. And he was the father figure that I did not have growing up. He knew a lot of my history, and he actually covered up some of it for me. So even at work, because of who my boss was, I took advantage of him.
Ooh, yeah.
And I knew that as long as he was there, that there was going to be no consequences at work. Really, as long as I didn't go overboard and put him in a spot that he couldn't cover me. So earlier this year, he retired, and the new boss is much more structured, and that helps me tremendously as well. So you hit it on the head, because the two things that a man really needs is obviously his employment and his family. And for the majority of my adulthood, there was no fear whatsoever that I was going to lose either one of those.
Yeah.
I mean, I went through 3 DWIs. 2 of them were in company cars.
Ooh.
And he handled that for me. I had a major drunken medicated incident at a corporate meeting, and he covered that for me. I never put him in a situation where there was any like sexual harassment or, I never went overboard that way or anything, but there was plenty of times where 9 bosses out of 10 would have cut the cord and sent me on my way.
Mm.
So, yeah, and the other thing too, just talking about consequences. I'm very fortunate with my job because, again, I've been able to handle the DWIs, the cost of it, without it really hurting my family. I've been able to crash a company car, without getting in any trouble and pay $5,000 for it to be fixed without anyone knowing about it.
Yeah.
I've been able to bribe a tow truck driver who towed a company car once, and I bribed him to release it to me without having to get a corporate letterhead from the company.
Wow.
So yeah, I can, and that goes back to the whole spirituality religion thing, and the fact that for most of my adult life I blamed God for my troubles, but now I'm actually in a place, clear-headed, level-headed, where I look back and say, God, you helped me through my adult life, because I was in some positions that there's no reason that I should have came out unscathed.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying that I can't do this alone. I've got a sponsor now. I've got God in my corner. I've always had my wife and a few friends in my corner, so I've surrounded myself with the proper support that I need mentally and spiritually, I think, to keep going and succeeding.
Fantastic. All right.
So, all right. So, how would you describe, in essence, and with the different tools and methodologies that you're using, what your recovery is? So, overarching, like, how would you describe your recovery to someone who, might not know what recovery necessarily is?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I'm still figuring it out.
That's a good answer.
I'm all over
That's a perfect answer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, geez. I mean, I'm doing, you name it. I've probably tried it over the last 6 months to get to this point. I've the support groups, all forms of the support groups, whether it's just the men's group at church, to the AA groups, to the Celebrate Recovery groups, to my workout groups in the morning. Surrounding myself with positivity and the people that I hang out with, to just structuring my day around my morning readings, my morning rituals, working out, eating good, getting good rest, my evening journaling, which is positive and has been really therapeutic, my therapy sessions, my medication. So it's recovery to me is just finding and trying any and everything. And I think you'll settle in at some point. It's almost like starting a new job.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and try a bunch of different stuff. And, you're probably doing good, if 30% of it works, in baseball, I guess, is a good analogy. If you hit 300, you're an all-star. So the way I figured, if I try 10 different things with recovery and 3 of them succeed and keeps me sober, then I'm an all-star. And so it's hard to define recovery because I think it's different for every person.
Absolutely.
I just think that if you're serious about it, and that's the key, you got to be serious about it.
Yep.
And you got to take it serious, and you've got to try whatever, because what works for me may not work for you, may not work for, you know, someone else, and vice versa. But it's hard to explain. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, but to me, like I said, I'm still figuring it out. I'm all over the board. My wife, she's happy that I'm sober, but she says I'm manic sometimes. Just because I can't be bored.
Yep.
If I'm bored, that's trouble for me.
Oh, yeah.
I've got to be active. I've got to be doing something. Just before getting on here with you guys, I had 4 neighborhood kids in my front yard, and I was pitching batting practice to them just because I was waiting to get on the phone with you guys because I had some dead time.
Awesome.
So yeah, I can't define recovery. I mean, it's almost like pornography. You know it when you see it.
I like it.
Love it.
No, yeah, I mean, I can't define it, but it's different for everybody. And for me right now, I am. To me, it's like starting a new job, and I'm just trying everything, and I'll get, you know, a couple years in, and hopefully it'll be a breeze, and just, you know, going into work every day and having that routine, putting in the work.
Yeah. No, like I like. I mean, all like the whole answer was fantastic, but like just that, the very first bit of like not being able to like define it, and honestly, like you're still working on it. That I think is the key. And I like the baseball reference with the batting 300 and you're an all-star. That was fantastic. And to make another baseball analogy or just sports in general, like you don't figure out a good career. Like it's something you continuously work on. It's something like even Jerry Rice, the day after a Super Bowl, he's out running routes trying to figure out how to get a little bit better. And that's exactly what we're doing. And that's why they call it practicing spiritual principles, because we're working on it. Like once you think you have it figured out, like, oh man, I figured out recovery, then you're in trouble. That's not the mindset like you can have.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that I figured out over the years is, and the main reason I stopped counting my days is because I would get complacent. Oh, I've got 30 days in. I got 60 days in.
Mm-hmm.
I can have a drink.
Yeah.
So to me, when I'd get to some of those milestones, and early on, it was trying just to get to 5 days. And then I'd set that goal.
Yeah.
I'd literally set a goal. Can I get to 5 days? And if I got 5 days, woohoo, let's drink. Yeah. And then it became 10 days. And I was like, dude, I can't count days because it's just setting me up to postpone the inevitable, or the pleasure delay, or whatever you want to call it. But it was fucking me up. And it was an excuse for me to just wait until I gave myself approval to use. And so I got away from that. And now, you know, hopefully one day I can look back and say, I don't know, it's been 10, 15 years. I don't think I'll ever be able to say it's been, 2,450 days, because I don't keep track of it like that. But like I say, I know if someone asks me how recovery is going, I always say, well, I'm sober today, I was sober yesterday, and I'm hoping to be sober tomorrow. So that seems to be working for me right now.
Perfect. Hey, if it's working, keep using it. All right, I have.
And that's.
Oh, go ahead.
And I was going to say, that's what I've tell people that I run into that are newer in this than I am. That, and it's kind of like the same answer I gave you when they asked what works. I was like, well, you just got to find what works for you, and if it's working, keep doing it.
Yep.
If it's not getting you in trouble, it's not hurting anybody, and it's keeping you sober and straight, keep doing it.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, I got a couple questions. One of them's a fun one,
Okay.
and then we'll do a more serious one. So, the first one is going to be the fun question. So Eric and I we're from Maryland, up near Baltimore, and you're clearly a Southern gentleman. So I just want to know what you find weird about us Yankees.
Well, wait, hold
How
on,
about
hold
you?
on. Are we Yankees?
Wait a minute.
though?
We're pretty
gonna say,
close.
Yeah, are you above the Mason-Dixon line?
Well, technically we're right below it. We're technically directly
All right.
below it. It's us in Pennsylvania is the Mason-Dixon line. But
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
I will say-
you'd be
I will-
hard pressed to find
How about this question?
someone from Carolina saying
All right,
Maryland
we're
is
we're
the
from
South.
we're from Baltimore, Jeff. Do you consider us northern or southern?
Oh yeah.
How about
okay.
that? That's probably a better question.
I would consider you Northerners, but I got a
Yes.
funny question since he brought up Yankees. Where I live, my street probably is right now about 50% of my neighbors are either New Yorkers, somewhere in New York, Buffalo, Rochester,
Mm-hmm.
or Boston, in that area.
Yep.
And several of them are retired and they moved down to Florida,
Yeah.
and it was too hot. So they end up back around North Carolina somewhere, and we call those halfbackers. So they move south and can't take the heat, so they go halfway back. We
Yeah.
call them halfbackers.
I love that.
Never heard of that before.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So that's something funny about the Yankees. All right, I love it.
Yeah. They're just
That's
the
fantastic.
Yankees, the halfbackers.
I've never heard that. All right, I got one more fun question. Okay, so my sister lives in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I had never heard
Love
this.
Wilmington.
Oh, I love Wilmington too. My family we vacation down there every summer my whole life. So we love it. And then she finally moved down there.
I've got a major drunk story for Wilmington, but for another time, I guess.
No, let's hear it. I want to hear it right now.
All right. So went on a weekend road trip down to Wilmington to the beach
Mm-hmm.
with a couple buddies, and went out one night and tore up, got drunk,
Yeah.
and I left the bar to walk back to the hotel. They stayed, and I got lost in the woods trying to get back to the hotel. Passed out. Emerged from the woods without my shoes, all cut up from the branches and briars.
Yeah.
By this time, it's probably 2 o'clock in the morning. And I stumble onto, I'd been walking for hours. When I went back and looked at my phone, I'd been walking for hours around Wilmington, barefoot, bleeding,
Yeah.
drunk, and starting to sober up a little bit. So I remember this part fairly accurate. Stumbled upon a gas station, and there was a car full of people, a family, and I paid them to take me to my hotel.
Uh-huh.
And I gave them the wrong hotel. I think I said Ramada or Radisson. There wasn't even one in Wilmington. And so we're driving around for hours. They have a young baby, and baby starts screaming. So I'm like, if you don't shut that baby up, if you can't shut that baby up, just let me off on the side of the road.
Oh, God.
So they did. Yeah. So I eventually made it back to the hotel about 6 or 7 that morning. My friends were still not back, but when they got there and found me in bed, the bed was just covered in blood from all my cuts and scratches. So again, a rough night that really didn't have any consequences that could have been disastrous for me.
Yeah, that could have been way worse. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so to my question.
Yep.
I didn't learn this until my sister moved down there. Why are the Carolinas called North and South Kakalaki? I don't get it.
All right, so I don't either. The first time I heard that was in the 80s when wrestling professional wrestling was popular.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if you ever heard of them, but the Junkyard Dog.
Yep. Yeah.
Used to refer to them as North and South Kakalaki.
Huh.
So that's when I first heard it, and I've heard it since then. But I don't know. I really don't know where it comes from.
All right. Well, we'll
but
give
JYD used it.
We'll give him credit. All right.
Yep.
Okay, to the real question. So, like you talked about using Celebrate Recovery and AA, and I think it's starting to become more prevalent that people are willing to go between multiple fellowships, but it's usually like people select, like they find their niche and that's what they go with, which is fine. But how has like the cooperation between Celebrate Recovery and AA, how has that helped your recovery? And how do you think that cooperation between all the fellowships is beneficial to the recovery community as a whole?
Well, I think, obviously the goal of any of the recovery groups, whether it's Celebrate Recovery, AA, Smart Recovery, anything, I mean, the ultimate goal is to find sobriety and, success in recovery. So, I don't think that you see I don't want to say negativity between the groups or competition. I just think there's so much pain out there right now that people are more open to it and more accepting. I think you see more people open to mental health issues and the need for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that filters down into the various groups, that they're more willing to accept that there's other groups out there that can provide not the same support, but similar support. And if it works for one person, then it's worth it. The thing that I like, about, and I'm going to throw Smart Recovery in here as well. The thing I like about Smart Recovery and Celebrate Recovery is it's not purely focused on alcoholism.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I enjoy that aspect of it, because my alcoholism led to other behavior issues that comes up in those groups that may not come, that people are struggling with addiction and that behavior. While I'm not that behavior that I've partaked in is not an addiction, but it's a symptom of my alcoholism. And I may not be able to hear that and comment on that in AA like I would in a Celebrate Recovery or
I got you.
in a Smart Recovery. There's gambling issues, and those other two. There's sex addiction. There's grief. Anything that you're recovering from. So while I've never had a gambling problem, I've certainly under the influence made poor financial decisions while gambling, and went overboard. Same thing with the sex stuff. I've never had a sex addiction, but years and years ago, there were a few times when I would be under the influence and I'd call a phone sex line.
Wow.
Grief. I still grieve the loss of the person who abused me, because I know deep down that they had to suffer probably worse than I did for them to act out on me. Now, while I take pride in the fact that I was been able to break that cycle, and I wish they had, I still feel for them. I still feel love for them. While I hate what they did, I still grieve that there wasn't closure, because they ultimately, after I got into college, they ultimately committed suicide. So I never had that closure.
Mm-hmm.
So those aspects of those groups, while it can come up in AA, it typically doesn't.
Yeah.
Because of the structure.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy that aspect of it, because I got to be honest, sometimes you go into an AA meeting and it's just like the one before, and I like the different groups because you get different things out of them, and I think for me that works.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Fantastic. What you got, Eric?
No, I think we're at the end of the road here, David.
You have no more questions?
I have no more questions.
No more questions.
No.
All right. Well, we would like to thank our guest Jeff for joining us this evening.
Woo! Yay!
You did a great job, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys, and just send me whatever you need to send, and I appreciate the time, and for anyone listening, hopefully it helped, and just appreciate what you guys are doing and offering for the community, and people out there, they need to hear that they're not the only ones suffering, and you guys are providing that, so I greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure a lot of people do.
Hey, man, we appreciate it. All right, here at Podcast Recovery, we are aiming to expand the scope of support for recovering addicts. Accessibility and convenience of helpful services is paramount to combating addiction. We work to bring the message of recovery to every addict, wherever and whenever it is needed. We believe that a powerful voice of recovery should be obtainable, practical, and at the touch of a button. Every addict deserves to hear a message of hope, and Podcast Recovery is here to provide it. And now over to Eric with our media statement. That was better than last time.
It's better than last time. You kind of stumbled a little bit last time, but it's all right. Practice makes perfect.
Exactly.
It's one day at a time. You just got to keep coming back, right? That's what we say around here, right, Dave?
You're an asshole.
Yeah, it's okay. So here at Podcast Recovery, we need your support to help keep the mics on.
Mm-hmm.
So you can join our Patreon, our home group at our Patreon page, or throw some money in the digital basket at our PayPal account. And then also follow us on all of our social media accounts, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. I almost said LinkedIn. I was like, I don't think you have LinkedIn.
No.
Instagram, and comment, like, share, do all of the
subscribe.
great things that you can do on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And back to David for sports.
Yep. That totally threw me off when you said sports. Okay.
Yeah, I know. You started thinking about the Ravens and shit.
I really did instantly. All right. For more information about Eric, Carly, Allie, and myself, go to podcastrecovery.com. But most importantly, everybody out there, please stay safe and stay clean.